Talking about bizarre, from gold-plated vehicles to fancy pink Barbie cars to Volkswagen Bug with long legs, we have compiled a list of wackiest, weirdest cars from all over the world. So here are some of the strangest cars ever made. Number 1. 1936 Toyota Scarab. This Scarab is a huge, spacious precursor to the minivan built long before its time by prolific inventor William Bushnell Stout, who is best known for his work in aviation, including a sky car, a monoplane called the Batwing, America's first scheduled airline, Stout Air Service, eventually to become United Airlines, and the most successful aircraft in the US to date, the Ford Trimotor. Not only did it have a unique construction body made out of light aluminum, it featured the famous Ford Flathead V8 engine placed at the rear, driving the rear vehicles via a stout-built 3-speed manual transaxle. The brand never took off, partly because at $5,000, the Scarab was more expensive than the Bugattis and Cadillacs of those days. Fewer than 10 were produced. Number 2. 1951 GM LeSabre. The LeSabre, also known as the XP8, had a high grille that concealed the headlamps, the first ever curved panoramic windshield, and a tail that brought to mind a jet aircraft. Beneath its sleek appearance, the LeSabre was a rolling test laboratory for radical new types of materials, most of which turned out to be too expensive ever to use in production cars. The LeSabre's body was made of cast magnesium panels and hand-formed aluminum. The idea behind many of the design choices of the LeSabre was the function styling, in which each element of the car should not only be aesthetically pleasing but also serve a purpose. One notable aspect of this was that each of the dual tail fins contained 20-gallon fuel tank, with open space in the rear, allowing for a usable trunk that could fit a full-size spare tire. Number 3. 1959 Cadillac Cyclone. The Cyclone, a 1959 show car with an aircraft-inspired design, explored futuristic technology. An early version of a crash avoidance system was the Cyclone's radar sensing technology that provided the driver with information on an object ahead, including distance to the object and stopping distance, both measured in feet. This Jetson-like bubble top show car made its debut at the inaugural Daytona 500 and looks to have borrowed a few design ideas from NASA. Designers Harley Earl and Bill Michelle gave the Cyclone a flip-top canopy that was fully powered and would disappear in the trunk, resting on an airbag when not needed. The top was also coated in vaporized silver to deflect the sun's rays, and the sliding doors would just out at the push of a button, allowing easy opening and easier entry. The rectangle in the door was a compartment to allow outside interaction without flipping the top, and external speakers ensured that the driver's voice would be heard. The black points on the leading edge of the front fenders hid a radar-based guidance system meant to interact with future smart roads, and the concept even boasted an untested proximity warning system that would relay an alert to the driver of upcoming obstacles. Number 4. 1948 Tesco. This is a Durham-bodied prototype for a post-World War II American sports car and featured airplane-inspired controls. This prototype was a single vehicle ever designed by Tesco, the American sports car company. To say its name was ambitious would be an understatement. After this one single attempt at challenging the status quo, Tesco called it quits. Only one model was ever made, and it was not received particularly well. America at the time was obsessed with aviation, a result of advances being made in the field and the high-flying pilots of World War II. It made sense to try to combine the aesthetics of a fighter plane with that of a sports car. That meant it featured an enclosed cockpit like you would find on a light aircraft, and the introduction of the first ever T-bar roof, which didn't end up in the production for 20 more years, fitted with 2 plexiglass panels that you could lift out. The wheels were enclosed too, and the front too even turned with the wheels. The inside dashboard was very consciously designed with levers and gauges that made it look like you really were inside an airplane. Number 5. 1934 Voisin C25 Aerodyne. The height of Gabriel Voisin's version was reached with Aerodyne, a 4-seat fastback that exemplified France's love for aviation. But unlike anything else from the period, Voisin was able to utilize modern S-lines where the other design houses couldn't escape French curves. Part airplane, part spaceship, the Avion's Voisin C25 Aerodyne looks as though it drove right off a retro-futuristic Art Deco poster. The C25 Aerodyne is so radical that it doesn't even look real at first, but in the spirit of wildly individualistic cars since the dawn of the industry and of wildly iconoclastic French cars since about that same time. It was indeed a production vehicle. Of course, there weren't many of them produced. The C25 Aerodyne was extremely expensive for the time, priced higher than a 1933-38 Bugatti Type V7, and the engine's performance, while silent and luxurious, fell somewhat short of its futuristic looks. Ironically, it also represented the last gasp of the company, which was in the process of losing its most talented employees even as the C25 was making its debut. A poor economy and World War II quickly put an end to the business. Only 8 C25 Aerodynes were produced. Number 6. 1942 Eve Electric. It's not tough to see how this little electric car earned its name. L'Eve Electric, literally the electric egg, was built by French artist, designer and engineer Paul Arzins in 1942 for personal use. It had 3 wheels and ran on batteries decades after gasoline became the dominant way to power cars and decades before Elon Musk decided to make electricity cool again. Its designer, Parisian Paul Arzins, worked as a painter and designed railway locomotives before moving on to cars. Number 7. 1935 Bugatti Type V7 Competition Coupe Aerolite. In 1935, Bugatti showed off their powers at the 1935 Paris Motor Show with a prototype Aerolite competition coupe that was used as an exhibition car and subsequently destroyed. Bugatti intended to manufacture the Aerolite and other prototype Type 57S cars from electron, an alloy of magnesium and aluminum from IG Firebird of Germany. Though it is strong and up to 1/3 the weight of aluminum, it is also highly flammable, thus welding was not possible. This meant that each panel had to be riveted into place, which posed a particular problem for traditional design. Therefore, Jena incorporated the rivets aesthetic into the wings of the car and created a telling combination of function and form. Number 8. 2001 BMW Jena Light Visionary Model. Jena is an acronym for Geometry and Functions in N Adaptations, where the N stands for infinite, as if the acronym wasn't enough for a stretch already. It's a fancy way to summarize a way of thinking about how cars will be shaped, manufactured, and used by their owners in the future. The Light Visionary Model (LVM) is a physical manifestation of this idea and features some innovative and out there approaches to making the philosophy a reality. BMW says that this concept isn't just about the styling of the car of the future, but also the creative freedom offered to designers and engineers alike. To that end, this concept wears a fabric skin comprised of a wire mesh inner stabilizing layer and a water and temperature-resistant outer layer. Instead of the usual myriad body panels, the LVM was just 4 outer elements, one that covers the entire front end and runs to the rear edge of the doors, 2 rear quarter coverings, and 1 across the rear deck. BMW seat designers helped with the precise measurement, cutting and attachment of the material, which is stretched over a mechanized electric and electro-hydraulic metal and carbon frame. Number 9. 1970 Lancia Stratos HF0. The Lancia Stratos HF0 is a prime example of the remarkable projects talented designers can create when given the freedom to go all out. Since Burton didn't have to worry about making the vehicle feasible for the production, that opened up a world of opportunities for the Italian design house to create a veritable showstopper. And that it did. Unveiled on October 28, 1970, the Lancia Stratos HF0, penned by none other than Marcello Gandini, was a sensation from day one. Thanks to its radical design, the Stratos SF0 stole the show in 1970, generating much buzz. The Stratos SF0 is valued at around $1.4 million. Number 10. 1953 General Motors Firebird 1 XP21. This was the first gas turbine automobiles ever to be built and tested in the United States. Designed strictly as an engineering and styling exercise, Firebird 1 was intended to determine whether the gas turbine could be used as an efficient and economical power plant for future vehicles. This car is none of those things, looking far more like a missile that would have been used by the military to take out hostiles during warfare. The car was so impractical that for the longest time only one driver was qualified to operate it. The distinction belonged to Emmett Conklin, who led the project. However, Maury Rose, a driver who is honored in the International Motorsports Hall of Fame, Motorsports Hall of Fame of America, and the International Jewelers Sports Hall of Fame, did eventually drive the car at Indianapolis Speedway, managing a top speed of 100 mph before shifting into second gear, which he promptly slowed out for fear of crashing it. Once he shifted into second, the wheels began to lose traction quickly.